Welcome to the Change of Him podcast. My name is Gerard Uselli, and this is episode 45 of the Change of Him podcast. And let me tell you, this has really been an evolution of change between so many people that I've talked to, so many different walks of life, whether that's CEOs, whether that's toy industry professionals, whether it's people trying to get over their addictions and vices. Change is inevitable and relatable to all of us. And this person is no exception to the rule. Let me introduce to you Robin Ganzert. Robin, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing so well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, something to
Great.
ask all of my guests this first
Mhm.
question, and it's relatable to everybody as well. What was your childhood like growing up?
Well, first of all, you will see that with me today are two dogs, and you definitely will hear two dogs with me today. My whole life was full of animals. So, how lucky was I growing up to always have a cat or a dog or a little horse that was always part of our family and part of our lives? I grew up moving around. Gosh, so many different states, so many different towns. I was not a military brat. I was what we called a retail brat. When the big malls were opening, my dad would go and open up a new store. And so we lived in so many different states that I was always moving around. But my childhood was made so special by meeting lots of different people, but always a constant was my family. And my family had two legs and four legs. So I was really lucky to grow
I
up with
like
having
that.
animals in my life. Yes.
That's very cool. Now, I was curious about this, kind of like a follow up on that. What was it
Mhm.
kind of like to maybe have like the same companion of an animal moving around? Did it help things cope easier as far as meeting new people at the same time?
Absolutely, because I always had my best friend to confide in, and my best friend was always had four legs. And so for me, my four-legged best friends went with everywhere I went. So I would change schools maybe twice in a school year, different states, different communities. So, I was always meeting new people, and it's really hard when you're young to get in with the group, and to be accepted on the playground and all those kinds of things. But I always had my best friend, and two that come to mind are Coco, my beautiful little gray poodle. She was special to me, and Daisy, my cat. So flash forward many years later, I'm not going to tell you how many, but I have Mr. Darcy with me. Mr. Darcy is, named after one of my favorite books, Pride and Prejudice. So he's inspired by that. And I have Daisy, and named after one of my beloved cats, but she's a dog and she's very, very special. And they're with me tonight. So it's great.
So, this is the first time I've had some special guests alongside of you. So, that's a very formal way of introductions that way. So, you always have to make history at some point, right?
That's right. That's right. That's great.
So tell me about the first pet you've ever had. And did you feel like you took a lot of initiative, even taking care of animals back then, like when you were a kid yourself?
I always connected to those eyes, those animal eyes. And my very first pet was a dog in Jacksonville, Florida, named Buttons. Now, Buttons was a Cocker Spaniel, kind of a little brown colored Cocker Spaniel. And he had the big, big, huge brown eyes. And I just remember, running around the backyard with Buttons and just chasing Buttons. And, I'll never forget it. But Buttons, my very first dog, made me fall in love with an animal. I also fell in love by going to zoos and aquariums. So I'd fall in love with megafauna, as we call them today. But I fell in love with elephants and giraffes. And, then I watched the Disney movies, and I wasn't looking for the princesses back then. I was looking for those incredible animals. So I've always loved them. But Buttons was my first puppy, and I fell in love with the beautiful brown eyes.
And to lead into my next question with another follow up, did you feel like even throughout your life, you wanted to pursue the sense of being involved with animals as part of your career?
Well, to be honest with you, I never knew you could do this kind of work. I never did. I thought, well, I'll just go and major in business and I'll do something in business, whatever that means. Oops, I told you the dogs are going to bark.
I love
I
it.
warned
Please
you.
keep it going.
There they go. Oh my goodness. But I will tell you that I never knew I could do this kind of work. And I was working in the social good sector, the nonprofit sector for a number of years. And then I got that dream call a little over a decade ago saying, would you be interested in coming and running American Humane? And I thought, wow, what a dream come true. I get to, help build a better world for kiddos and animals, hopefully allowing them to have that bond, that wonderful bond growing up. And I get to maybe protect animals around the world. And so I was really blessed when I got that phone call a decade ago.
So kind of coming into that, like to maybe fast forward a little bit within your journey, like explain what it was like to first start yourself out at American Humane and what it's been like for you throughout the years.
Yes. So in 2010, I got that wonderful phone call, right? Saying, come aboard. And when I joined recognizing that I loved the mission. There can't be a better mission than changing the world and making it more humane for people and animals because animals make us better humans. I've always believed that. I've always known that to be true. And I think, every political leader should always have an animal. I don't care if it's a dog or a cat, it's all good, a horse in the backyard, whatever. But every political leader should definitely have that connection to animals too, because I think it makes it us all better humans. So in starting, I didn't realize that the organization had been around so long that they had actually lost their way. And what I came into was an organization that had lost its mission focus. It had had 40 plus disparate programs. It was an organization coming off the 2008 recession that was losing big money every year. And I looked around and I said, we can't do that. This organization is such a crown jewel in America's humane movement, but we must do something. We must act now to save the organization. So for my first couple of years, I was taking 40 disparate programs, narrowing them down to program planks, where we had incredibly robust programs that had historical significance. They were relevant today as well and timeless, and they had funding opportunities too. And that's very important when you're in a nonprofit sector. You have to find you have to find programs that have funders that where people believe in too. And only with sustainability of funding can you actually continue to build a better world.
Yes, and that's a very good point. And through the essence of just handling animals as well. I feel
Mhm.
like when you were talking about the presidents themselves and people who are political leaders, I feel
Oh,
like in a
yes.
reflection of things, it's kind of a metaphor for when you actually value humanity in itself. I feel like to have an animal involved in your life in some way, shape, or form redefines the selflessness of how people are towards each other because animals also do have emotions.
They make us more empathetic. They make us more compassionate. And what I believe too, and this is one of the programs I hope we get to talk about today. A few years ago, I created Pups for Patriots, which provides service dogs for wounded warriors. And these are the wounded warriors facing those invisible wounds of war, PTS and TBI, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress. You don't see their wounds, but they're there. And it's actually the dog, their service dog, that gets them up in the morning. It's their reason to live. And I think on smaller levels, the rest of us humans who aren't facing those invisible wounds, we can benefit from that unconditional love, that reason to get out of bed every morning to take care of a creature. My Mr. Darcy right here, who's now whining in the background. It just gives us that reason to go. So I really believe it. I've seen it in action, and I know it makes us much more compassionate and empathetic, and it gives us that reason to keep going every day.
And a final point on that. So, as somebody myself now, I've never
Mhm.
personally owned an animal, but I've dated people who have. I've had a lot of
Mhm.
friends. I've also walked. I've done like dog sitting and things of that sort. What I
Mhm.
wanted to say about that is let's say, like, if you're sleeping at night and then your dog or cat or whatever wakes you up. I feel like
Mhm.
that nobleness to not get like disrupted and rather just calm and cope with the animal that's around you I think it
Yes.
does showcase that point that, hey, we are all human. And just like them being kind of like those humanistic aspects, it kind of plays a part as far as how you treat each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. It does. It's that interconnectedness between people, animals, and the world we all share, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you've actually been a dog walker on occasion and walked a few dogs. That's really, that does make you really connected to that animal for
I'll
sure.
never forget one of the first times I did it. Again, never had an animal in my life. I was
Mhm.
walking 4 dogs at the same time. That was something. 4 Yorkies.
Yorkies too. That's hilarious. That had to be a lot of fun. I love a Yorkie.
Yes, it was an entertaining day to say the least.
I love it. Well, my little guys got their little bully stick toy and they just like to play. So please do excuse the background noise. I'm telling Mr. Darcy's now not the time to play.
This is so awesome. Please keep them in the background. So I wanted to ask you,
Mhm.
so aside from the pandemic, what was the growth like to see the Hero Dog Awards come to fruition?
Um, I love the Hero Dog Awards. It is, I'm going to pick this anymore. And I'm going to there. Now they're settled. So excuse that little momentary animal interruption. But you know, the Hero Dog Awards isn't about my dog right here, not about Mr. Darcy, who's really so cute, but he's just a companion animal. The Hero Dog Awards is really the celebration of working dogs in our lives. It's a celebration of military working dogs, service dogs, law enforcement dogs, those incredible therapy dogs that you see at children's hospitals or even in airports or people who get nervous about flying. Today, we even have COVID sniffing dogs. How cool is that, right?
Absolutely.
These dogs are so amazing. And we felt it was about time that we threw them an award show. You know, you think about Hollywood and you see everyone getting awarded for a movie or, a film that touched their hearts, great performances. And we thought, you know what really needs to have an award? Is the incredible working dogs that have really saved lives. It's an incredible online phenomenon, right? People nominate their dogs from their local hometowns, campaign through social media, and then 7 finalists are named. And then every fall, we have our gala night. It's like the Oscars for canines, where human celebrities come out to pay tribute to the wonderful working dogs who've been nominated. And it's my favorite night every single year, bar none. You know, one dog was named Jinx. Jinx was a law enforcement dog in West Virginia, and his deputy was in a shootout, and Jinx was there to help protect that entire battalion, right? Kyle gets
Wow.
shot, and it's Jinx who pulls him down off that mountain, trying to get him to safety. Well, that deputy passed away. Terrible. Never met his unborn baby. But on the awards gala at the Hero Dog Awards on stage, we brought his beautiful widow and baby girl. And that entire unit came out from West Virginia to Hollywood, and they received the award on the behalf of that deputy, Sheriff Kyle, and in honor of what Kyle and that bond with law enforcement dog officer Jinx did that day. So these dogs, they do so much. They're in the line of danger, just like the military working dogs are. Think about the service dogs that allow, incredible kiddos to keep going on when they've been inflicted with some, horrible, injury or even a medical condition. These dogs, they do save lives and they're with them as part of the bond and they risk their own lives to help save us humans.
I don't want to play semantics on cliches, but think about what you just said. So you were just talking about a whole group of people who went to the
Mhm.
award show. And with the saying, a dog is a man's best friend, I think that is just symbolic of how one animal can unify a whole sense of community around that animal.
Absolutely. And we make it to where it is a very serious event, It's not an event where, we're having those funny dog videos or funny cat videos. These are really dogs who are doing amazing things. And what I always say is that these are heroes on both ends of the leash. And that is, I think, the most important
Wow.
takeaway every time we celebrate the Hero Dog Awards. And this year will be again in the campaign mode. It was over 400 nominations, which is amazing. There's easily
Mhm.
every year well over 1 million votes cast for these dogs. Isn't that wonderful? And
Wow.
I just say, may the top dog win, the best dog win.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So kind of to maybe elaborate a little more, even though we kind of touched on it in here and there, how do you think dogs make us better humans?
Wow. Well, dogs make us better humans because they pull us out of our humanness. Isn't animalness sometimes the most unifying factor that we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
The animalness of these incredible creatures connect us to a world outside of our own. There's never been a better example than the pandemic. Let's face it. We're in isolation as humans, right? We're worried about COVID. We're worried about our family, protecting our family. Our entire social structures pulled out from under us, whether we go to church or do something on, with our friend group, whatever we do, everything was eliminated from our lives. And there we find ourselves either in limited quarantine bubbles or, dare I say, alone. What did we see? An absolute, just incredible phenomenon called the pandemic pet, where people went to their local shelters and rescue groups and brought home a new best friend. And that, I think, is an incredible example of the way that us humans can continue in unchallenging times, but there was challenging times, right? Times that we could never imagine. And how did many of us handle the grief, the isolation, the loneliness, the illness, the fear? We handled it by adopting and bringing in a four-legged best friend to our home. That's powerful. And so when I think about what an animal makes us, just look at the pandemic. So many of us were saved because we had an animal that we brought into our lives. I call them a pandemic pet.
The
Could have
fact
been a
that
goldfish too, by the way. I'm great
you,
about fish too. I don't
all
want to
right.
limit it to cats and dogs. Fish, hamsters,
Spoiler
they're all
alert,
good.
I may or may have not had a goldfish in my life, and that was
Okay.
my only exception as far as having pets. So, like, just before I get into the last question, so unfortunately, my family, my mom and my sister particularly, are very allergic to animals. So it was
Yes,
always a conflict of interest to have them in the house. Now, just throughout the
absolutely.
environment, I've loved animals, like just going to people's houses. I would just go to see the animals at that point. I mean, I love my friends and everything,
Yes.
but still.
Yes, absolutely. And so many people are allergic. And what I do say too, so that we don't have animals being returned to shelters, it's best we know our families, right?
Yeah.
Are they allergic? Do you live in an apartment where a big Great Dane doesn't make any sense to have, right? Matching the animal to your family is so important because if it's a mismatch, what happens is those animals end up in shelters or rescue groups. And so we want all animals to be able to have a forever loving home. And if you're not able to have one in your life because of allergies, because of maybe your building doesn't permit you to have one, because maybe your schedule is that you're traveling everywhere and you're not able to have a pet with you, by all means, there's other ways for us to remain connected to animals. And that's why I love the fact that we can visit our local shelters and rescue groups and volunteer, which is terrific. We can also go to zoos and aquariums where we can just marvel at the majesty of megafauna in those facilities. Even, I love a beautiful aquarium where I'm just able to be transported to another world, another part of our world, the oceans, to be able to experience and see those animals, tune and learn. That's really important. So we can have such an opportunity to remain connected to the animal kingdom.
What I could that was so beautiful to say, like definitely. And just on a final note, because we're about to conclude, nonetheless, a final question I also ask all of my guests. What is the
Mhm.
biggest change you want to see for yourself?
The biggest change I want to see for myself is I never want to be fearful. I always want to believe that everyone on this planet can be humane. Everyone can embrace those values, and I never want to be fearful about achieving that. So to be honest with you, it's making sure that I never see no as the final answer, right? When someone argues with me, oh, that insect doesn't matter in the whole conservation debate, I want to always be able to say, it does. So the change within me is always to challenge myself to continue the good fight, never get tired, never get worn down, never lose my energy, keep it going, and then be able to bring along a whole army so that we can change the world. Every creature matters, period. And I have to maintain that energy level to be that voice every single day. And I never want to lose one moment of time being that voice. So for me, oh, keep fighting. And I remind myself, because some days are really hard when you see cruelty, neglect, abuse, on and on. And then people say they don't care. And I have to say, never let that be the final answer. Continue to fight. And that's really the challenge.
I have to say, you have really summed up well what change is all about, because when you really need to stick with something that you believe in, changes, positive, and the hurdles along the way are going to come in your life, and the way that you embrace them makes the difference. That being said, that concludes episode 45 for the Change Within podcast. For those who want to check us out but have never heard of us before, please do so on Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Robin, thank you very much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you too.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.